and let us all do we can to build a better future.
So on the off chance, hypothetically, if Biden is not really fit to be president, let's say something happens between now and the DNC convention in Chicago, by the way, and Hardlands Media will be there. Well, there's a couple of people who could be a potential successor to Biden. Maybe that the Democrats will pick. I don't know. It could be any one of these Democratic governors like Gavin Newsom and Pete Buttigieg. Anybody, really, in the neoliberal establishment. And then there's also somebody else we got to talk about. Somebody who is waiting in the wings. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Now, look, I'm going to start this video off on a funny note. Got to give credit where credit's due. Shout out to Nick. Kamala Harris, after seeing the special counsel report about Joe Biden. Like, oh, yeah. Yeah. Ready to become president. Instead of vice president, you're going to become the president. The president. The president. So here we got Kamala Harris. Well, apparently it's not looking good. Kamala Harris ratings continue to plummet as 2024 presidential election nears. All right. So the favorability rating of Vice President Kamala Harris continues to sink 9 months ahead of the 2024 presidential election in November. Harris, who has largely witnessed a decline in support since taking office in January of 2021, is now viewed negatively by a combined 53% of registered voters, according to the results of a national NBC News poll released Sunday. To which I have to say is oof. Not good. Not great either. Terrible, actually for Kamala. Of the 1,000 registered voters who took part of the survey, which was conducted from January 26th to the 30th, only a combined 28% said they hold a net positive view of the vice president, a 4-point drop since June. Among those responses were recorded, 42% said they hold a very negative view of Harris, and 11% said they hold somewhat of a negative view of her. Only 10% said they hold a very positive view of Harris, while 18% said they somewhat hold a somewhat positive view of Harris. Oh, Kamala, it is not looking good for you. The findings from the survey are in line with other NBC News polls that were taken within the last 3 years of President Biden's tenure in the White House, most of which show a decline in Harris's favorability over time. In a November survey, 29% of registered voters said they held a net negative view of Harris, compared to 52% who said they hold a net positive view of her. In the June 2022 survey, Harris was viewed net positively by 32% of registered voters and net negatively by 49%. Last month, Harris suggested the poor approval of the Biden administration in public opinion surveys was not due to taking adequate credit of the administration's accomplishments. Oh, so it was not taking adequate credit. What has the administration accomplished? We got massive inflation. We have unstable global theater right now. We have many conflicts happening. We have a system in which is trying to suppress third parties and independents, and yes, even getting Donald Trump off the ballot. We have a system in which we have a crumbling infrastructure. Americans are suffering from man-made and natural disasters and all that other stuff. So there we go. So folks, look, let me be very clear. Let me be abundantly clear here. Okay. There's nothing that this administration can say. There's nothing that this administration can say or do that can convince voters that their lives are doing great. And Harris, you don't have a really clean track record either. Last month, Harris, Harris' comments came during a sit-down interview with journalist Katie Couric, who listed off what she believed to be a string of accomplishments for the Biden administration and asked the vice president why she believes her and the Biden's approval ratings are at historic roles. Harris said Couric was correct and that she and Biden had historic accomplishments, but again, said the administration had to let people know who brung it to them. Oh, great. We have a lot of accomplishments, she said. And I think the American people want most of their leaders is that we actually get things done. We have it done. Oh, we haven't taken adequate credit for it. Frankly, we've got to do a better job of getting the word out about what we have accomplished and who did it. Biden's approval rating in some recent surveys have shown him down in the 30s, potentially dangerous territory for a president in a re-election year. He's also gotten low marks on the border and the economy, although the White House touted positive news about fourth quarter growth. Hey, the economy's doing great. Just not for you. Just not for poor people. This is an administration that is living in its own reality. Harris squarely a campaign issue after Biden's special counsel report Republican strategist. Oh my goodness, what is going on here? Let me close that window here. Republican strategist Scott Jennings said Vice President Harris is now squarely a campaign issue in the wake of special counsel report on President Biden's retention of classified documents released Thursday. I would say, and I don't know how many people on this panel believe it, there aren't too many Americans who are going to look at this and say, this guy is up for serving for 5 more years as president of the United States. I mean, 4 more years, not 5. Jennings said on CNN's Newsnight in a clip first highlighted by Mediaite. I think Vice President Harris became squarely an issue in this election today. She's already getting there, and now it's even more important. Harris has a 40% approval rating as of late January, according to the Los Angeles Times of her polls on her favorability. In an NBC News poll last summer, her approval was only 31%, a record low for vice presidents. The report from special counsel Robert Hur released Thursday concluded no charges should be brought against the president, but it noted Biden had problems with memory and recall. Well, look, each of us have our own problems. And I think it's important for us to just remember one thing. Kamala is no saint. Because there's one thing I always like to bring up. One thing I always like to share with everybody, especially when we do this show. When it comes down to Kamala, we have to remember, when she started in the 2020 Democratic primary, it was one big bang. First black woman running for president. Huge hype around her. You know, the DNC and corporate media were kind of making her out to be a half Clinton, half Obama. And then it died. It ended up nothing more than a wet fart. A wet, sloppy, stanky fart that you got to walk in now. That's right. Because her campaign went bankrupt. It went belly up. And she didn't even make it to the first primary. She couldn't tell the truth, even if it meant saving her own life. She had a track record of being a terrible politician. And so it's all this hype around Kamala being like a potential successor to Biden, because we don't know what will happen for the 2024 DNC convention here in Chicago. And yes, Hardlands Media will be there. But I just want to pull up this old gem just to remember when Kamala got destroyed in 2020. She didn't make it to the primary.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people.
Now, remember, her team, her staffers kept information for a guy who was on death row. Death row. And that's not life row. It's called death row. It's the final stop. Hey, I think that's kind of important, especially if it means the guy is innocent. So we don't kill an innocent man. That's kind of important. Last I checked. I mean, you know, there's a lot of books and notes out there in the world, but I think it's kind of important to look into that kind of stuff.
Which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
Yes, but you laughed about it when you put people behind bars. don't want to talk about your input with the California prison industrial complex, or either that, how you made sure under your tenure, how prisoners who were firefighters fighting against these dangerous wildfires in California, how when they would get out of prison, they would be still be incapable of actually becoming professional firefighters. Don't want to talk about it, do you, Kamala?
I want to bring Congresswoman Gabbard back in. You're responsible.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you were in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Oof, 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 oof.
Listen, Kamala doesn't have a real good record, okay? She's not that real popular amongst voters. Her approval rating has been in the toilet ever since Biden first stepped into the White House. She has constantly shown herself to be lackluster and mediocre. And will she become an issue for Biden's reelection campaign? The answer is yes. Again, when O'Keefe interviewed that White House security analysis person, they were spilling the beans, talking about all the stuff that was happening under Biden and Kamala and how Kamala was hemorrhaging staffers. I mean, what's it like working for Kamala? It must be a big nightmare because even Simone Sanders cartwheeled out of there. What does that tell you about Kamala and maybe her ability to be president? It tells you one thing, and I got to quote Donald Trump on this one. It's not good. It's not good. Not good at all. Not good. Not good.